I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and today we have another amazing guest, Lauri Schoenfeld. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a second, but first let me make sure you understand what Warrior versus Zombie is about. Success is a journey. It's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are really all part of making us who we are up to this point and give us a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, really any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and really a vision that goes generations into the future. And our guest today is no exception. Lauri Schoenfeld is a mother, an author, a speaker, a mentor, a writing instructor, and an entrepreneur. Her journey through childhood trauma, abuse, scoliosis led her to a very dark place of depression, suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and panic attacks. 5 years ago, the laughter of her children on the other side of the wall saved her from ending it all. Now, I want to hear a little bit about that. That sounds pretty dark, but I can see there's a lot of light in you today, Lauri, so we'll keep moving on that. So now she's the owner of Inner Enlightenment and a creative coach or creativity coach, helping those who struggle with PTSD, anxiety, and feelings of being trapped or stuck within their life. She's the host of the Inner Enlightenment Show. She's an author edition show and the author of Research Edition. She's a frequent guest on podcasts, panels, and business groups talking about the value of self-expression, resilience in the face of darkness, and connecting to your inner child and learning to love yourself after abuse. Lauri, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. And I want to talk, first of all, before I ask you the question, I always have my inner child. I tell my kids all the time that you're only young once, but you can be immature for a lifetime. So I'm with you there. I don't know if that's where we're going to go, but I'm with you on the inner child. I've got my inner child usually on display most of the time. So with that, tell me about yourself. Tell me how things are going in your world. I want to talk, we'll get into your story in the second segment, but how's it in Utah? I think you're in Utah, right? Tell me about what things are like there these days.
Yes, thank you, David, so much for having me here today. I'm very honored to be here. Utah got a little bit of snow on the ground right now. We had our first winter snowstorm ever this year, which normally we have a ton of snow. It's very warm at the moment, which is nice. We have birds chirping. I'm a homeschooling mom, which is a whole different adventure. This is the first year with COVID. I stepped into homeschooling my children, which that's been a whole experience all by itself. That's really brought us together as a family. I'm walking through my journey every day of learning what loving Lauri looks like and bringing that into my marriage, my family, and my business. And so that's what I'm up to in the world right now.
So your starting of the homeschooling adventure or journey manifested itself during the pandemic. So you did it predominantly because of that situation. Another fascinating warrior thing, right? We look at the obstacle and then we find a way through it, around it, over it. Well, kudos to you, having 5 children and considering the homeschooling option. Both my wife and I both realized neither one of us were cut out for that. Not that it's a level of discipline that I have to admire. I've got a niece who does it with 5 kids, and I'm just like, oh, wow, I just can't even imagine. And has a a job, and she's a psychologist and has a practice and homeschools the kid. It's beyond me. So kudos. I'm sure that's a journey in and of itself.
Thank you. It's been fun.
So what else? So when you say warm in Utah, what does that look like in March 1st in Utah?
We're in like 40-degree weather right now, which is a nice, happy blend. If it's not windy, it's nice. You got the sun, but then you still got the feel of the winter snow. So it feels good.
Yeah, snow's beautiful as long as you don't have to drive in it, shovel it, whatever. I mean, all those kinds of things. Having lived in Michigan for 18 years, I can say it looks pretty if you can stay inside and look out the window, or maybe even do something fun like ski. But to have to go to work in it and deal with it, I was never so thankful to sell something that I owned as I was to sell my snowblower and my snow shovel when I moved to Texas. So, but as far as warm goes, you're maybe just 10 degrees cooler than it is here in Dallas today. So yeah, it must be. I do love the sun. That's the main thing for me. I need that vitamin D3. I need that sun. So, that's a beautiful thing. So any other interesting things? Is Utah kind of, I mean, since we all kind of have this pandemic mind frame now, is Utah what you would consider a lockdown location on that end of the spectrum? Or is it more personal responsibility, smart practice? Kind of like Texas. Where do you fall on that spectrum? I honestly don't know.
It's more personal responsibility right now, and just kind of keeping your own awareness as to what's going on in the world around you, and making choices accordingly to what you feel are the guidelines for your family and your setting. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I that's great. I mean, having kids and wanting to protect kids and stuff like that myself, over the years, I never really thought I would come back to the government treating me like a kid, and like my inner child was going to express itself in irrational behavior. And I really admire those that we've elected or given the responsibility to guide us through various things, being treated as an adult. And that sounds like what you've got there in Utah. So yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, again, I think we're all as responsible. So that's beautiful. It does make moving forward and doing business out of this pandemic a little more possible, I guess, is the thing. I mean, anything's possible, but it's the degree of difficulty. I can't imagine being in some of these places like New York and Los Angeles and Washington State, and some of the places where they are still not behaving in that way with the people, and it's businesses are dying. So that's going to be, that'll probably, we'll talk a little bit about that in your current journey. I think probably when we get to segment 3, but in your world, that presents some potential opportunities and substantial needs, because I know in my world, I'm running across people, really good, solid, loving people every day that are at their wits' end, that their businesses are, I'm, working with some clients, and especially like restaurants and these places, and they're just hanging on by a thread. So they're depressed. They're wondering if it's worth it, and those kinds of things, which I know is kind of your focus, and we'll talk about that. So any other things going on in your world that I should be aware of? Any fun things? The kids going to be screaming in the background or anything like that? Or How old are you, the homeschooling kids, if you don't mind me
Yeah, I
asking?
have 3 kids. My oldest is 13. I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old is my youngest.
Wow. Okay, so you're right in the heart of that K through 12 experience there with your homeschooling. Well, that the whole show, the Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I found out I wasn't. So when they had that show, so that was the other thing that convinced me I shouldn't be a homeschooling parent. But anyway, well, that's great. Let's this has been a good check-in segment, but Lauri, I'm really, really excited for the audience to hear your story. And when we come back, and then we'll talk more about where you're going after that. But let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit more of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be back with the next segment of Warrior versus Zombie and Lauri Schoenfeld.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not.
All right, we've had a great check-in segment with our guest warrior, Lauri Schoenfeld, and I need to take just a minute to thank our sponsor, Be Connected, where entrepreneurs connect. Invite you to get in on the ground floor of the premier hub for successful warriors. Be Connected empowers warriors from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, home-based and small business owners, CEOs, and really founders or anybody, enabling them to connect, collaborate, and really create a larger impact in the world, which I know all warriors want to do. So really check us out now and learn how you can thrive as we move forward out of this pandemic at BeConnected.com. That's BeKonnected.com. And if you go there, use the special code MyVisionWarrior, and you'll get a special discount and an opportunity for a free membership. All right, now let's get back to Lauri. Lauri, we heard about Utah, we heard about homeschooling, we heard about what you're dealing with there, but what I really, really want to hear is kind of that story that I kind of teased the audience with at the beginning, and hear about really how you got from where this journey started in your mind, wherever you want to go, and then how you got to today. And then we'll take a break and come back to from today forward. But I want to hear about that story. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. My journey starts from childhood, where I grew up with physical, mental, emotional, as well as sexual abuse within my home from both of my parents. And I lived in a space where I didn't understand what was going on, but it over time felt normal. I thought that that's what everyone was going through because that's the world that I was living in. And so there were two things that I learned very early on. Is I learned very quickly how to be in fight and flight, to be in protection mode, which was a consistent mode of not trusting anyone, being prepared for battle at any given moment. And the other thing that I learned was how to find love in very toxic ways, as I grew up in my home with very conditioned love. And again, at that time, I didn't know that that's what it was. But I was constantly looking for validation. I was constantly looking for people pleasing. I was finding ways for people to say that I was enough, that I was valuable and loved. And I just led into that throughout my childhood, but into my teen years. So in my teen years, friendships and relationships, to me, I didn't quite understand what that looked like. I used to give my toys away for people to like me. I used to try to say different things that I wasn't, because I wanted people to see me as a better option than what I was. And so I never truly found value or worth in who I was as Lauri. I was constantly trying to be what other people I felt needed me to be. And that to me said that then I'm enough. If I am what, this person wants me to be, that's a friend, then I'm enough. If I'm exactly what my dad or my mom needs me to be in any given moment, then that's what I am, and I'm enough. And going into marriage, I brought, again, when you're growing up with what I just thought that was what everyone was dealing with. I didn't understand any other concepts of love. And so I brought that a lot into my marriage, of just trying to be still within my marriage, my friendships, my business relationships, what other people wanted me to be. And it finally got to a point about 5 years ago where I was so depressed. I was doing everything that I thought that I needed to do. I was being everything I thought I needed to be that was supposed to be valuable, loved, important, seen. And I still felt just a sense of depression, that I didn't want to be here. I was numb. I was anxious all the time. And the thought process for me was, I don't want to do this anymore. If this is what I am and this is what life is all about, I don't want any part of it, because I'm not being seen for who I am.
Wow. That I got to tell you, Lauri, that takes my breath away, not in a good way. You're such a, you seem such a beautiful soul. And, I'm hoping that right now you know that truth is not your truth anymore. And I know that, but I'm just saying, it so much hurts my heart to think of a child growing up in an environment where, and I really don't even want to know the details behind what you just kind of glossed over there, that it's hard to imagine that would be something that somebody would come to know as normal. And it's so true. And we'll talk about more of going from this point forward in the next segment, but it's, I can see so much common situation that so many people, maybe that didn't go with where you were going on your journey, but are in that place right now because of all the stress and anxiety and change. And you see all kinds of information on abuse. But anyway, I don't want to interrupt your story. I just really wanted to tell you that I really feel, even though we're on Zoom, I really feel the story that you're going through. So tell me more. So you got to that point, and 5 years ago, and it was kind of that juncture, which it could have gone one way or the other. And I'm glad it went the way it did. And I'm talking to you today, but tell me a little more about emerging at that point and where that part of your story has brought you to today.
At that point, 5 years ago, I was contemplating ending everything. I was really literally at the point where I didn't feel like I had anything left to give, that my husband would have been better off without me, that he could have found someone that had more value than me, that my kids would be better off without me, because there had to be somebody out there that knew how to be a mom in a way that I felt that I was not able to give them. And as I was sitting there, allowing myself to feel the emotions I was feeling, I could hear my young kids on the other side of the wall laughing and giggling. And that was enough to pause me for a second, and really process what was going on within my mind. That the visions that had come up for me was, I thought about my mom doing a very similar thing to what I was about ready to do, and how that made me feel when I was a kid. And I remember how that felt when I was a kid, feeling like, why does my mom not want to be with me? And when I heard my kids on the other side of the wall, I was able to process just that thought of, I don't want my kids being left with, why would my mom not want to be with me? Because it didn't have to do with them. It had to do with what I was going through, but I knew that that would leave a mark for them. And so I got up in that moment and was very honest with myself, probably honest for the first time in a very long time, of what have I not done? And the answer that came for me as I was really processing and questioning everything and where my hurt really lied, it was that I never, ever learned how to love myself. And I was trying to be something my whole entire life that I wasn't. And that identity loss of not being who I am was what was hurting me the very most, is feeling like I couldn't be me and that it wasn't enough. So that was the next step for me, was unlearning everything that I had been taught and going down a completely different path of, what does loving Lauri look like? Who am I really? What do I want to create in my life? And knowing full well that I didn't want to give my kids what I had. I wanted them to have a new possibility, which meant that I needed to start with myself and creating that for me first.
That's so incredible and so powerful, because that is the whole, you hit on several things that are so true. And I'm so glad you discovered. I mean, one is that your identity, we all have a unique reason for being on the planet. There's nobody that's here that's unnecessary. And so just the coming to the realization that there was a lot of reasons for you to be here, including your kids, including the world at large that really had yet to experience the true Lauri Schoenfeld, the all the things, and then knowing then that there had to be something. And then I always say, it's not the things that I don't know that were destroying me. It's the things that I thought I knew that absolutely aren't true in my life. And that has to do with my health, my business, relationships, you name it, every area of my life. There's so many things, I think, that our zombie brain gets a hold of, and we start believing that those things are true, and they become part of that program that's running in our background and affects our foreground. It affects those decisions we're making, and we don't even realize it. So it is very powerful for the audience and for anybody that to hear what she just said, which is she had to unlearn some things that she was holding on to that weren't serving her, and had taken her to a point that nobody wants to be at. So I'm that is extremely powerful, and so much benefit to anybody listening to this podcast. So tell me a little bit more. I didn't mean to get off on that, but you really had an impact on me, and I just really wanted, the audience to kind of get their head around how powerful what you said was.
Thank you, David. From that point, I tried lots of different things. I allowed myself to, when you're unlearning things, it means retrying everything all over again from a different perspective. And so I started reading books. I got into therapy. I worked out. I did creativity exercises, anything and everything. I tried to see how it felt, not for the Lauri that I was and tried to be, but who I really am. And the beautiful thing with that is we each have, with our inner child, there are soul callings and things that just light up our heart. We all have them. And that's when, when you're in a room with somebody that's in their inner child, you can feel it, because their energy and their excitement is just so joyous that the whole entire room feels that. And so I started really asking those questions of, what are those things that light up my heart? What makes me joyful? What are the things I've been missing that I want to bring within my life that I didn't allow or give myself permission to do? And walking every single day like this I'm still on this journey. I want everyone to hear this, that I am not recovered. I'm not completely through it, but every single day I show up to checking in. What do you need today, Lauri? Physically, mentally, and emotionally? And really listening to myself just like you would a child. Kind of being the way I look at it is the own mother and father to your own inner child, of being the nurturer. What can I do to support you? How can I help you today? Oh, you're feeling that today? Let's talk about it. And so I started walking through that journey with myself of connecting in a very new and different way. And what I found, which was so beautiful, is that the very thing that I didn't think was possible was becoming possible. And that is what I wanted to really incorporate within my life every day, within my own life, but also to help other people see that I feel where you are, and it feels that you can't get out of this hole, and it feels like you're never going to go anywhere. But there is a possibility, and that's something that we all need at some point in our life. It's just that sense of hope that it is possible to change, to move forward, to unlearn, to become something other than what you think or feel you need to be.
That is so wow. I knew when we talked the first time that we were aligned, and just listening to you talk. I mean, one of the things that I say and literally guarantee with everybody that I have the opportunity to have a conversation with, just get to know, is that when we're done, I can't guarantee you anything, but I guarantee you will believe more in yourself, because you will believe in possibilities. And if you believe in possibilities, you believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in possibilities, then you don't believe in yourself. And that is not something that comes without work. It comes with daily, like you said, daily walk. We don't arrive. That's the theme song to this podcast. It's not the getting there. It's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you'll realize time is worth more than gold. And then we take that journey every day, every step, and we have to be self-observant, self-aware. Have that conversation. I love that just that mental image that you just gave me of sitting down with myself, sitting down with that. I call it zombie. Maybe the inner child is feels a little more nurturing, because it's kind of hard to think of sitting down with a zombie. But the reality of it is, there's also some times with that inner child needs to be disciplined, and the whole thing needs to say, no, son, daughter, that's not right. That's not helping you. You need to stop that. And I see that now with my grandkids. I just had them all day last couple of days, and there's times when as much as you love that inner child, you have to stop it. So and say, no, ain't gonna go there. Well, what else? So have we gotten to today yet, or are we, or where? Tell me a little bit more. I don't want to. I love your story, and I want to make sure we get it out there so people can really understand how you got to where you are today.
I love what you said there, David, of like disciplining your inner child, because there are moments I feel like the teenage Lauri is still in there rebelling, and I have to really sit with her and say, I get why you want to be impulsive or rebellious right now, but let's check in with behaviors and patterns. Is this really beneficial to what you want to create within your life? But yeah, I definitely have my teenage moments too that are like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. But no, that was the starting point of checking in every day. And then about 3.5 years ago, I got asked to come and speak at a writing workshop to talk all about my journey. And why that was such a crucial moment is I was terrified. That was the first time that I actually spoke up in front of a group of people about my story. And what came with that, why I was so nervous about that, is I had held for so long that if I share my story, I'm going to hurt other people. I'm going to affect and ruin other people's lives. But because I didn't hold my truth and my story, I was also holding myself back from being all that I needed to be and the healing that I needed to walk through and go through. And so when I spoke 3.5 years ago, something beautiful happened is I found my voice. I found confidence within myself, but then even afterward, I had multiple people that came up to me after and said, I'm going through this thing. This spoke to my heart. Can you support me? Can you help me? This really resonated with me. I don't feel so alone anymore. I feel like someone understands me. And that started propelling me into teaching workshops, teaching the things that I've been using on my own journey that's helped in my healing process, to help other people that are also going through very similar situations that feel stuck, that feel trapped, they feel alone, and they just want someone to be that beacon to say, you're not alone. I feel you. I will hold space for you. Let's walk through this together. And that's what propelled me into Inner Enlightenment and creating my own business, was seeing the need of so many people, just like where I had been, just wanting to find a lifeboat and find a way to enjoy their life in a way that they didn't have the tools to know how to do that yet.
Wow. I mean, I can feel it. I can see it. And it sounds like we've gotten to today. And so I want to talk about Inner Enlightenment and the things that you're doing here. But I got to tell you, Lauri, it's always so fascinating to me. And hearing your story and most of the warriors that I've talked to, it's so true that our journey has led us to this point today where not only have we done things to serve ourselves and people that God or the universe has brought into our path, but that experience for those who are really the warriors that I see in every person that I talk to, like yourself, is you now want to take that and you want to help not only your kids and your family. That's a lot, but also the other people that are now brought into your path that you can show that it is possible to change, and it is possible, and that they're not the only ones, because that is a lie, as I call it, a lie of the devil, is that you're the only one. No, you're never the only one. You're unique, but when it comes to the challenges of this life, we're all going through them, and having somebody that can be on the journey with us and help us along the way, maybe just a few steps ahead of us, or maybe a long way ahead of us, is a beautiful thing. So let's take a quick break. I love the story. We're going to come back with, after a quick snippet of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And we'll come back, and I want to hear about where you are today and where we're going. So with that, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Warrior vs. Zombie and Lauri Schoenfeld.
How many people know your name? One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and...
All right, we are back, and my goodness, this has been a journey already, just going through Lauri's story. As I told her at the break, she even made me cry. So it's been so powerful already. But Lauri, I'm so honored to have the opportunity to share you with the audience and hear about why you're continuing to do what you're doing at this point, and the value you provide, and where you're going, if anything were possible. So can you share some of that with us as we go into this segment?
Yes. I am personally continuing my journey of when, like we talked about previously, when you are showing up for yourself in self-love everything else flows, whether it's your marriage, family life, business. So I'm continuing to work on myself, work on a healthy and beautiful new space of our marriage, building a new foundation within our family of teaching our children the tools that I didn't learn, but I now have the opportunity to teach them, and also incorporating that within my business. With Inner Enlightenment, I do creativity coaching as well as workshops, writing workshops. And I'm also the host of the Inner Enlightenment Show. And my purpose there is to continue to help hold a space for people to have a voice, to be able to express their inner child and their feelings in a space that feels safe and supported. And that's the first step to help them feel anchored in so that they can know that there is hope and a possibility to get to the next step and to be able to work on the things within their own life that they are personally aiming for, but starting with themselves.
So tell me about this, and I know a little bit about this, but so I'm connecting the dots a little bit, and I kind of hear the inner child and the hope and the sharing space and opening, all that. What is that workshop thing? Expressing my inner child. Obviously there's probably a lot to it we can't get to on the podcast, but kind of what does that look like?
Expressing your inner child. I love that question. There are a lot of layers there, but simplified, it is giving a space for kids, teens, and adults that have PTSD, anxiety, trauma of any sort, to be able to start asking themselves the questions that I had originally asked myself of who are you really? What are the things that you want to become? Who do you want to support within your life? What are the things that you're passionate about, but putting it into an art form so that there's play and wonder, as I feel that curiosity, play, and wonder is just an expansive part of our life that helps us to see hope and gratitude through color and through feelings and expression. And so it's a beautiful blend of both, of asking, being your own investigator, but also using art forms in play and creativity to get there and start exploring that within yourself as well.
I love it. I love the artistic nature of it, having my youngest daughter being an artist and seeing her expression. I'm assuming you don't have to be an artist in this case, because I've looked at a lot of art from not only my children but other children, and we wouldn't probably put it on display, but it's always very precious and expressive, and regardless of how rudimentary it might be, it is an expression, and I can see it. Just thinking about, obviously, modality, methodology, things that I use are different, but I can also see the power in helping people break out of the box, if you will, and get out of the constraints that they put themselves under by just engaging in something that is really an act of artistic expression. Does that seem like I'm getting it a little bit, or is it different than that?
Yes. So we, in workshops, everyone is an artist as we're learning at different layers. And a part of being an artist, it could be it's completely different for every individual, as it should be, as we're going on our own journey. And so it's opening up space to even just play and create, to use different colors, to use different patterns. Something that somebody wouldn't put in their house, someone might put in their house. And that's what's so beautiful about art and expression, is we all relate to different things at different times for different reasons. And that's where there's a home in the workshop of not trying to be anything like anyone else, but really just using those methods of what does that feel like to you? What kind of color do you want to use? What kind of words do you want to use? What kind of feeling do you want to bring in? And just allowing it to be whatever it shows up to be.
So one of the things that you shared earlier in your story, and I don't want to make an assumption, but I'm guessing. So your unique value that you're providing to the people that come into your sphere of influence or your practice, that unique value is tied into your own journey, how you got there. I'm assuming this is some of the things you're doing here are things that you've used to break through your own barriers, and is that a good assumption, or how do you see yourself? There's a lot of people out there trying to help a lot of people, and there's a lot of people right now who need to be helped. But what is it how would you characterize kind of your unique value to your clients?
I love that. I bring a lot of joy and play into our workshops, within our creativity coaching. A big part of opening up to allowing your heart space to feel and to go into a tough situation is being in a space where you feel safe and you feel that something is joyful and playful. Otherwise, there is a block oftentimes when you know that you're supposed to get to something, but it feels really, really tough. That's when a lot of times the block comes of, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do it. But when you have a sense of play of, I know this is going to be hard, but let's play a little bit here, and you have friends surrounding you. There is joy. There is that possibility that you're going to jump over that hurdle one step at a time. That lightens the load a little bit to be more in the space of your inner child where, okay, I can swing on the swings. We could jump off the swing. Kids jump off the swings all the time, and they do it in a spirit of joy and play. But if you're looking at it from jumping off a swing of, oh my goodness, I'm going to die, you're going to sit there and hold the swing for a lot longer than what you were planning on doing. And so it's just being more in the inner child of jump and fly, we're in play.
I love it. That's actually, again, for anybody listening here, that's more powerful than you can even imagine, because when you're living in scarcity, when you're living in stress through these times that we've gone through in the last year or so, you're not thinking in your creative mind. In fact, when you're run, hide, and just stay out of sight, you're not thinking about creative. You're not taking risks. You're not going and trying. And I just, again, my own kids, my grandkids, they're not afraid to try anything, and they'll play. And to them, it's play, and it doesn't matter if they want to win and they want to be, they're competitive. My grandkids, I can attest to the fact that they always want to win, but I think that comes more from their parents, not from them. But they love to play, and if we can focus on the game and learning from it, that's such a beautiful thing. So let me ask you this, Lauri. This is kind of my signature question. Okay, so if anything were possible, which, as I said, I believe everything is possible, what kind of impact would you see yourself like? Are you saving one starfish at a time? Or you want to take what you're doing and see it transform your community, your world? I mean, if anything were possible, what does that look like going forward?
I love that you brought up the starfish. I'll say both, because I think that those go hand in hand. I want to save one starfish at a time, as I feel that it's a domino effect, that when someone is an anchor for another person, they're able to then be an anchor for someone else. And the energy and the expansion of helping your community just expands and overflows. And so, yes, I want to share my journey and my story and help as many people as I possibly can. I also really want to focus in and be present with one person at a time, give them that love, attention, and support that they're needing, so that they can then support their family, themselves, their community, and their businesses, which is just that beautiful domino effect of impact within humanity, of supporting and loving one another as they are.
I love it. Yeah, that's great, because because you're right. I think sometimes there was a thing, and I remember I came out of the corporate world and stuff. There was this thing called mass customization that we talked about from a business context, but it really, really is more important now than ever because there's a lot of things you can market. You can put programs together. You can do things that you can market to the masses, and people buy those things. And a lot of people make a lot of money, and they do a lot of things. But the reality of it is, the rubber still meets the road at that one-to-one place. And I love the balance that I hear in your vision, is that you still never want to forget that you're changing lives one at a time. That's why I say my unique reason is to change the world one dream at a time. And I've had people come up to me and say, how can you change the world? And I said, because if I impact Lauri's world, and then she now knows that her dream is possible, her vision is possible, and she's got somebody helping her, then she's going to impact 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. It doesn't matter, because those 10 people, if their impact, you can change the world. One, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, okay, I helped her, so nobody else can, it's we can all be together in that. So that is such a beautiful, beautiful balance. Anything else about where we're going? Because we're getting ready to land the plane here, and I want to come back to our land the plane segment. So anything else that we've missed in this part of it?
That was perfect.
Okay. Well, you are perfect. That's a great, great place to end this segment. I think the audience they're going to come back and listen to this one over and over again. So what we're going to do is take another quick break, hear a little bit more of this It's Not the Getting There from Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back. And then when we come back, I'm going to give you a chance to think about it a minute. But if the audience, I'm going to ask you two questions, and if we were to take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away? And then we'll talk about how to stay in touch. So we'll come back in just 30 seconds, and we'll hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Warrior versus Zombie and Lauri Schoenfeld.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God, on down the road.
All right, we're back with the final segment. Boy, it seems like it just blew by, but we're here with Lauri Schoenfeld, and just before the break, we talked about what were the major takeaways we should take. So, Lauri, if we took away anything from this podcast, what would you want it to be?
The major thing I would say is to remember that you can unlearn and create anything all over again. That nothing is the end. It may feel like it's the end, but it more than likely is just the halt of that part of your journey, and you're ready to move on to the next step. And when you're feeling like it's a death, it usually is, but that doesn't mean that it's a death that is going to be hurtful at the end. It may be a rebirth that's coming in, and oftentimes it is. You're learning that there are things that aren't serving you, that don't feel good within your life, different things that you would like to change. And all of those are signs and feelings that you're ready to step into something different, to create a new life and possibility for yourself. So if you're feeling that sense of dread and feeling stuck, know that you're not alone, that we've all at some point felt that within our journey. It just means you're ready to shift and change into something different that will serve you in this next step of life.
Wow. Yeah, that is so powerful. And I love the way you said that, because oftentimes when the plane is descending, And I have a plane mindset because I put 4 million miles on airlines when I was traveling all the time. So I use these plane metaphors like landing the plane segment and that kind of thing. But it really is what you said is it's just because we're landing the plane for this part of the journey doesn't mean we're not going to make it to the final destination. And it's a journey every day. So you're always going to take off again, maybe on a different plane, maybe in a different relationship, maybe in a different company, maybe a different thing. But your unique reason for being on the planet, your life purpose, your value that you're going to provide on that next flight or this next segment is still there and is not gone. And the possibilities, as you said earlier in the podcast, still remain. Sometimes we just have to remember that our journey doesn't end on this segment on this flight, if you will. So that's very powerful. Any other takeaways? That's like worth the price of admission right there. But you can unlearn and you can move forward, and you get to a stopping point. It is not the end. When you get there, you'll know, as the song says. Anything else that we should take away?
Yeah, I would just leave it with what people say about you has more to do with them than it does with you. Oftentimes we create our identities based on what other people say about us, but they're actually saying the very things that they're struggling within themselves. And so if we can look from that perspective, that can help us to kind of shift our journey as well of, oh, that's their journey. I wish them the best, but that's not what I choose to feel about myself. And that's not the identity that I carry or want to carry about my life.
Yeah, and that is extremely powerful. I mean, it'd be one thing from somebody that maybe hasn't dealt with what you've dealt with the abuse and those kinds of things, where you said earlier in your story, if the audience can connect with that you were defining yourself by what other people thought, and you were measuring your self-worth by what other people thought. And to say now today that that's something that nobody should do, and that really it is coming to the realization that you said that when you're measuring yourself by what other people think of you, that's not the proper measurement, because you have no competition except for yourself. And everything else, every bit of comparison is something that is really of the devil. It's really not something that we should be doing and will not serve us. So we have no competition. We have no collaborate. We're collaborators. We don't. Life's a team sport. Just because we're measuring ourselves by our own progress and continuous improvement and ignoring what somebody else is saying about us doesn't mean we don't care. It just means that we're all on the journey together. And hey, if you've got a better way, go for it. And if you're not wanting to go on the same direction as me, beautiful. Go your way. We're all adults here. We're all going to a place, hopefully, that's better than where we are today, right? That's great. That's excellent. So I'm going to ask you, is there anything else? Because you're full of it, if you will. Anything else, or can you ready for me to ask you the final question?
I'm great.
Okay, so the final question is one that I'm sure everybody is waiting for. Even though you're in Utah, how would we stay connected to you after this podcast, Lauri? What's the best way? I don't need 100 ways, because chances are the person's listening to the podcast, they're working out or they're on the car or whatever. But what would be the best way for us to follow up and see what you're doing, get to know you a little better, take advantage of some of the value you can provide? What would that look? Where would we do that?
If you go on to Facebook for Lauri Schoenfeld, I have all of my links up on my personal page for business as well. So it will just interlink to email, business, all the other places. So Facebook is a good place to find me, Lauri Schoenfeld.
Facebook is totally fine as long as they don't mute you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, you're that's great. So Lauri Schoenfeld, you mind just spelling it for the audience, because I know how it's spelled, but it just because if they're going to find you, you've got a more unique name than David Roberts, so it's easier to find you. But would you just spell that, and then I'll come to the last thing.
Yeah. So it's Lauri, Lauri, Schoenfeld, Schoenfeld.
Perfect. Okay. Well, again, that's some people maybe haven't had the homeschooling expertise that you deliver. So knowing how to spell somebody's name on Facebook is an important thing. And so we don't want them to find some other Lauri that they don't want to find. Well, this has been an incredible journey. Lauri, it's been such a blessing to have you share with me. If it hadn't impacted anybody, it's impacted me, and it's been a beautiful journey on this podcast. I want to remind those guests that we're on all podcasting platforms, Warrior versus Zombie. Feel free to share it with your friends. This is episode 31, and so we will. I would encourage you, if you just listen to this one for the first time, go listen to some of the others. But this is one worth listening to, re-listening again. And so I want to give you one final reminder. If you want to connect with a community of folks like myself and Lauri that are really about changing the world for the better, then I would encourage you to check out BeConnected.com. That's BeConnected.com. Sorry. And use the special code MyVisionWarrior to get a free membership and to experience this community that's growing and thriving and really transforming the networking industry coming out of this pandemic. So with that, thank you again, Lauri. It's been such a beautiful journey that you've taken us on here. And if there's anything we can do, let us know. And I would invite everybody to join us again on Warrior versus Zombie as we continue on this journey with warriors like Lauri. Have a beautiful day.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.